My mother told me I'd get nothing from my father's inheritance. She was right. I took everything instead. The moment my father's coffin touched the ground, my mother leaned close and whispered, "Don't expect anything. He left nothing for you." Her voice was cold, sharp, and final. It felt like she was burying more than my father, she was burying every hope I ever had. I froze, standing there among crying relatives and tired gravediggers, but inside me something cracked open. My mother walked away quickly, like someone who had already claimed a victory. She greeted people with fake smiles, receiving whispers of pity and praise. Meanwhile, I stood alone, staring at the fresh soil. My father and I were not perfect, but he always told me I mattered. So why would he leave me nothing? Why would he trust only her? Questions burned in my chest like fire. When we returned home, she walked into his room and locked the door like she owned everything inside. I heard drawers opening, papers shuffling, and bags zipping. She didn't hide her greed. She didn't even try. I stayed quiet, watching her through the small gap in the door. She thought I was weak. She thought I would accept anything she said. But she didn't know this one truth: if she wanted to fight for everything, then she had just started a war. After the burial crowds left, the house felt heavier than ever. My mother walked around with fast steps, hiding files and whispering into her phone. Every time I entered the room, she stopped talking. She pretended not to see me. I pretended not to notice. That evening, I walked into my father's study, her new favorite hiding place. She had locked the door, but I knew something she didn't. My father had a habit of keeping spare keys behind old things. I checked behind the wall clock, and there it was. When I entered, his smell hit me, mixed books and his cologne. I stood still, trying not to cry. I searched through drawers, shelves, and his jackets, looking for anything with my name. I didn't know what I expected to find. Maybe a note. Maybe a clue. Maybe proof he cared. After almost giving up, I felt something inside one of his coats. A sealed brown envelope. My name was written on it in his handwriting. I couldn't breathe. I sat on the floor and slowly opened it. Documents. Land papers. Bank codes. And a handwritten letter. The moment I read the first line, my mother's entire lie collapsed like a weak wall. My hand shook so badly I almost dropped the letter. My father wrote that he trusted me with everything he owned. He wrote that he knew there would be opposition. He said I should stay strong. He said he believed in me. Those words washed over my heart like warm water. He didn't forget me. He didn't ignore me. He knew exactly what would happen. I sat there for minutes, staring at the documents. My name was on each paper: property, land, bank accounts, shares. Everything. My mother wasn't just lying, she was planning to take all of it behind my back. I folded the documents carefully and put them inside my bag. I closed the study door exactly the way it was. My mother was in the sitting room, talking loudly on the phone, pretending to cry for my father. She didn't look at me when I passed. But when our eyes finally met, I saw something in her face: fear. She felt something had changed, even though she didn't know what. I went to my room, locked the door, and spread the papers across my bed. The truth was clear now. My father trusted me. My mother betrayed that trust. And I was done being silent. The next morning, my mother called a family meeting like she owned a court. She sat at the head of the dining table with her gold scarf tied proudly. "As you all know," she began loudly, "my late husband left everything to me. There is nothing for anyone else." Her eyes brushed past me like I didn't exist. Some relatives nodded quickly. They wanted her favor. My uncle pretended to clear his throat. "We trust your leadership," he said, smiling too wide. I almost rolled my eyes. Leadership? She was trying to steal what she didn't earn. My mother stood up and announced she would take over the businesses, the house, and every property. I watched quietly. When the meeting ended, she walked to me slowly. "This house is not yours," she said, voice sharp. "Remember that." I didn't reply. I went straight to my room and locked the door again. I stared at the documents on my bed. My name was everywhere. The more I read, the calmer I became. My mother thought she controlled the story, but she didn't even know the real script. I knew I couldn't win this alone. I needed someone who understood the law and my father's intentions. So I picked up my phone and made the call. I went to my father's lawyer the next morning. He had known me since I was little, and when he saw me with the documents, he sighed deeply. "Your father told me this day would come," he said. My chest tightened. "Why didn't he tell me?" I asked. "He didn't want to worry you," the lawyer replied. He pulled out a file from his drawer and placed it in front of me. "This is the updated will. The final one." I opened it with shaking fingers. My name was the beneficiary of everything. My heart almost stopped. The lawyer explained that my father changed his will months before he died because he feared my mother's greed. He made everything official, stamped, and witnessed. "Your mother doesn't know about this one," the lawyer said. "She only knows the old version." He warned me to act fast because if my mother reached any property first, she might try to manipulate things. He promised to guide me through each step. I left his office feeling like a new person. Not scared. Not confused. Focused. My father had trusted me with everything, and I wasn't going to fail him. The fight wasn't just about inheritance. It was about truth. When I returned home, my mother was in the kitchen shouting orders at the house help. She didn't look at me as I walked past. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I went straight to my father's room. His safe was still hidden behind his clothes. My mother didn't know the password, but I did. It was my birthday, something he always used. I entered the number slowly. The safe clicked open. Inside were the original copies of everything I needed. I placed them carefully into a waterproof envelope. Just when I closed the safe, I heard footsteps. I turned around to see my mother standing there. Her eyes were sharp. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Looking for something," I replied calmly. She stared at my bag like she could see through the fabric. For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. Not anger. Fear. I zipped my bag and walked past her without rushing. She didn't stop me. She only stepped aside slowly. That night, I couldn't sleep. My father's words replayed in my mind. His trust. His warning. I needed a plan, one that protected everything he worked for. When the clock hit midnight, I sat up and wrote down every step I needed to take. Tomorrow, the real battle would start. The next morning came faster than I expected. I woke up early, left the house before sunrise, and started making calls. The lawyer confirmed the will's validity again. The bank asked me to come with the original documents. The land office scheduled a verification. Everywhere I called, the story remained the same: I was the legal owner. The air felt lighter around me. When I returned home later, my mother was pacing the sitting room like someone waiting for bad news. "Where did you go?" she asked sharply. I didn't respond. I walked to the couch and sat down. "We need to talk," I said calmly. Her eyes widened. She wasn't used to me talking like that. I placed the waterproof envelope on the table. She looked at it like it was poison. She snatched it and tore it open. The first document she saw made her gasp. Then her eyes moved from page to page. Her face slowly changed from anger to shock. "This cannot be real," she whispered. "He would never leave me with nothing." "He didn't leave you with nothing," I replied. "He left me with everything." She stared at me like her world was collapsing. For the first time in my life, she had no words. I didn't wait for her to argue. I left the house and went straight to the company. The staff stared when they saw me walk into the conference room with the lawyer. Some of them smiled warmly. They remembered me from years ago. The lawyer explained the will. The board members looked surprised. Some relieved. Some disappointed. I knew which ones were loyal to my mother. But the law was the law. Within 2 hours, the company recognized me as the new owner. I walked through the building feeling a strange mix of sadness and strength. My father built everything with hard work. Now it was mine. After the company, I went to the bank. They verified the documents carefully. When they were done, they transferred the accounts to me. Manager after manager apologized for the delay. I just smiled politely. Then I went to inspect the houses, lands, and shops my father owned. Everywhere I went, people treated me with respect. Everywhere I went, my mother's name disappeared from the records. She tried calling me 10 times that day. I didn't pick up. I wasn't ready to hear excuses. I wasn't ready to hear lies. When I finally returned home, she was waiting with red eyes. The house was quiet when I stepped inside. My mother sat on the couch, her hands shaking slightly. She looked smaller than usual, like the weight of her lies was crushing her. When she saw me, she swallowed hard. "So it's all yours now," she said softly. I nodded. She looked down at her hands. "I didn't think he would choose you over me." Her voice cracked. That sentence hit me in a strange way, not because she was hurt, but because it showed how she truly thought. She always believed ownership meant love. Power. Control. "I didn't take anything from you," I said. "He gave it to me." She shook her head. "You don't understand. I did everything for this family." I looked her in the eyes. "You did everything for yourself." She didn't argue. She knew it was true. I placed one final document on the table, the house deed. "You can stay here," I said quietly. She looked up quickly, shocked. "Why?" she whispered. I breathed slowly. "Because even if you don't deserve it, he wouldn't want you homeless." She covered her face and cried quietly. I walked away, not out of hatred, but because I was finally free. My father trusted me. I honored that trust. Days passed, and the tension in the house shifted. My mother stayed in her room most of the time. I focused on the company, organizing files, cleaning up old numbers, and understanding the responsibilities my father left behind. The staff respected me, but I could tell some doubted my experience. I didn't blame them. I doubted myself sometimes too. But every time I felt overwhelmed, I remembered my father's letter. "Stand firm," he wrote. And I did. I spent long hours studying every corner of the business. I visited workers, supervisors, storekeepers. I listened to their complaints and ideas. Slowly, things started to move smoothly. People began to see me as a real leader, not just a child who inherited something. One evening, my mother finally came out of her room. She sat across from me at the dining table. "You look like him," she said quietly. I didn't answer. She sighed. "I was wrong," she whispered. "But I don't know how to say it properly." I nodded slowly. She stood and left without another word. It wasn't an apology. But it was something. I knew healing would take time. But I was not fighting for her approval anymore. I was building my own path, something she could never control again. Running the business came with more challenges than I expected. Some partners tried to test me. They assumed I was weak because I was young. One man even suggested selling my father's biggest warehouse for my own good. I smiled at him politely and refused. Behind the smile, I felt anger. People were always ready to take advantage of someone they thought was inexperienced. I learned quickly. I attended meetings with a notebook, writing everything down. I researched every detail after work. The lawyer guided me, but I made the decisions myself. Slowly, partners who doubted me grew quiet. One day, a longtime client visited the office. He looked at me and smiled warmly. "Your father would be proud," he said. Those words meant more to me than I expected. I didn't say anything, but inside, I felt my chest warm. That evening, I returned home to find my mother watching old family videos on her phone. When she saw me, she looked away quickly. I felt a strange tug in my heart. Not pity, just understanding. We were two people standing in the shadow of the same man, trying to figure out how to move forward without him. But while she clung to the past, I was learning to build the future. As the weeks passed, people around town began treating me differently. Some respected me more. Some envied me. Some pretended to be close, hoping for favors. I learned to read faces and intentions. I learned to trust actions, not words. My mother noticed the change too. She started talking to me softly, asking about the company. I answered her, but with boundaries. I didn't want to fall into her old traps again. One afternoon, she walked into my room holding an old photo of my father. "He always talked about your strength," she said. I just didn't listen. I didn't know how to respond. She looked tired, not physically, but emotionally. "I lost him before he died," she whispered. "I let greed blind me." Her voice broke. I stood there silently. For the first time, she looked like a human being, not a controlling force. "I can't change the past," she said. "But I want to change what's left." I nodded slowly. I wasn't sure if I believed her yet. But I was willing to see if she meant it. Healing doesn't happen in one moment. It happens in a collection of small choices. And that day, I allowed the first one. I started spending more time in the workshop section of the company. My father always said that if you want to understand a business, start where the real work happens. The workers were surprised to see me wearing a simple shirt and gloves, helping pack items and asking questions. "Your father used to move like this," one man said with a smile. Hearing that made me feel closer to my father than any document ever could. That evening, I took the old letter out of my drawer and read it again. His handwriting was shaky but clear. "You will face challenges," he wrote. "But you are stronger than you think." Those words were fuel. I kept them close. My mother knocked on my door later. "Dinner is ready," she said quietly. It had been years since she spoke to me that gently. At the table, she didn't dominate the conversation. She didn't give orders. She simply sat there. We ate in silence, but for the first time, it wasn't cold. After dinner, she asked if I wanted to watch a movie with her. I hesitated but agreed. It felt strange, but also peaceful. Maybe this was the beginning of something different. Something healthier. Things at home gradually softened. My mother still had her sharp moments, but she tried to change. I could see it. She apologized in small ways, cooking my favorite meals, checking on me, cleaning parts of the house she once ignored. She even visited the company once, greeting the workers politely. They were shocked. One worker whispered, "Is that really your mother?" I almost laughed. She wasn't perfect. She never would be. But she was trying. Meanwhile, the company continued to grow. I hired new supervisors, updated old systems, and invested in training. People started calling me sir, which felt strange but motivating. One morning, I received a letter from a business partner who lived overseas. He invited me to a meeting to discuss a new project. My father had always wanted to work with him. I felt proud. When I told my mother, she smiled for the first time in weeks. "That's good," she said. "Your father always believed you would do great things." Something warm spread through my chest. Maybe she finally meant her words. That evening, she knocked on my door holding tea. "You're doing well," she whispered. It wasn't praise. It was recognition. And it felt real. I traveled for the meeting the next week. It felt strange stepping onto the plane as the head of the company, not just someone's child. The meeting went better than I expected. The partner admired the changes I had made. He said my father would have been proud of my confidence and decisions. Hearing that again warmed me. After the meeting, I visited a quiet park nearby. I sat on a bench watching people walk by. Some laughed. Some argued. Some held hands. Life was moving, and so was mine. I realized I wasn't carrying my father's legacy like a heavy burden anymore. I was carrying it with pride. When I returned home, my mother hugged me for the first time in years. "Welcome back," she said softly. I was shocked. But I hugged her back. Things were not perfect, but they were better. And sometimes better is enough. That night, I lay in bed thinking about everything that had happened, the lies, the truth, the war, the peace. I had fought for what was right. I had honored my father. And somehow, I had rebuilt something with my mother. Maybe not trust. Not yet. But something close. Months passed, and life settled into a steady rhythm. The business flourished under new leadership, and people began to speak highly of my decisions. Even the workers who doubted me now asked for advice. I felt proud, not because of the money or the properties, but because I had grown. My mother also changed. She apologized more openly. She became more respectful. She even started attending church again, something she stopped doing years ago. One afternoon, she asked if we could renovate the sitting room together. I agreed. We spent the whole day painting walls and rearranging furniture. It wasn't about the house, it was about bonding. We argued over small things, laughed over memories, and sometimes fell into quiet silence. It felt like we were rewriting our relationship from scratch. That night, she sat beside me and said, "Thank you for not throwing me out." Her voice trembled. I looked at her and shook my head. "I didn't want revenge," I said. "I just wanted the truth." She nodded slowly, tears building in her eyes. I finally saw the human side of her, the side she hid for years. The side my father once loved. As the company grew stronger, so did my understanding of leadership. I started hosting meetings, training sessions, and small seminars for young workers. Many of them said they felt inspired by my story, though they didn't know all the details. I didn't want pity. I wanted progress. One afternoon, I visited my father's grave alone. The cemetery was quiet. I brought fresh flowers and placed them gently on the grave. "I hope I'm doing well," I whispered. "I hope I'm making you proud." The wind blew softly, brushing against my face like a warm touch. I closed my eyes and let the peace settle in. When I returned home, my mother was sitting outside on the balcony. "You went to see him?" she asked. I nodded. She looked away, wiping her eyes. "I miss him every day," she said. Her voice cracked. I felt threatened by everything he left behind. I was afraid of losing control. I listened quietly. She continued, "I didn't want you to have more power than me." I didn't know what to say. Her honesty surprised me. For the first time, she explained, not justified, her behavior. It didn't erase what she did. But it made me understand her more. Days turned into weeks, and the peace between us stayed steady. My mother helped with some paperwork at home and even suggested ideas for the company. Not all were useful, but I appreciated the effort. One evening, she brought out my father's old album, a thick book filled with photos from years ago. We sat together flipping through the pages. My father's smile appeared in almost every picture. Strong. Warm. Proud. My mother touched one of the photos gently. "He always believed in you," she whispered. I nodded. "He believed in both of us," I replied softly. She shook her head. "I let him down. But you didn't." Hearing that made my chest tighten. She wasn't just talking about inheritance anymore. She was talking about everything. The years of distance. The silence. The mistakes. She looked at me with tired eyes. "I hope we can start again," she said. I nodded slowly. "We can try." It wasn't a promise. But it was a beginning. And sometimes, beginnings matter more than endings. One day, I received news that the overseas partner wanted to invest in a bigger project. One that could change the company forever. It was a huge opportunity. I spent days planning and preparing proposals. My mother tried to help by making meals and checking on me. It felt strange but comforting. The night before the presentation, she knocked on my door and handed me a small box. "Your father wanted you to have this when you were ready," she said. My heart raced. Inside the box was an old wristwatch. My father's favorite. I held it carefully, feeling the weight of it. "Thank you," I whispered. She nodded and walked away quietly. The next day, the meeting went better than I expected. They agreed to partner with us. When I returned home and told her, she hugged me tightly. "You did it," she whispered. I smiled. Not because of the success, but because of the journey. I had fought battles she never expected. I had faced truths she tried to hide. And I had grown stronger than she ever imagined. As the months rolled on, our home slowly returned to life. We cooked together sometimes. We watched shows. We shared stories. The anger between us faded, replaced by something softer, understanding. My mother still struggled with guilt. Sometimes I caught her staring into space, lost in her thoughts. One evening, she approached me with a stack of old papers. "These were your father's notes for expanding the business," she said. She handed them to me carefully. "He wanted you to use them." I took the papers and thanked her. She sat down beside me. "You know," she whispered, "when he changed the will, I thought he didn't trust me anymore. I thought he was pushing me away." I looked at her gently. "He didn't want to hurt you," I said. She nodded weakly. "But I hurt myself." She sighed deeply. "And I hurt you too." For the first time, she apologized without excuses. The moment hung in the air like a warm breeze. I didn't reply immediately. Instead, I placed my hand gently on hers. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was acceptance. And sometimes, that's more powerful than any harsh punishment. Business continued to grow rapidly. The new partnership brought new opportunities, new clients, and new responsibilities. I hired more staff, expanded the warehouse, and bought new equipment. People started calling me the youngest business leader in the area. My father would have smiled proudly. At home, things were calmer. My mother no longer questioned every decision I made. She gave advice only when I asked. Sometimes I found her writing letters she never sent. Letters to my father. Letters to herself. Letters of regret. One afternoon, I found her sitting in the garden. She looked peaceful. "You've changed," she said, looking at me warmly. "Not just because of the inheritance. You grew." I nodded. "I had to." She leaned back. Life has a strange way of teaching us things. Sometimes the hardest lessons come when we lose what we love the most. I understood her meaning. Losing my father changed both of us. But instead of sinking, I rose. And instead of continuing her path of greed, she chose a new one, one of humility. We didn't talk much after that, but the silence felt comfortable, not cold. One morning, the lawyer called me. He said he wanted to deliver a final set of documents that my father left behind. I visited his office immediately. He handed me a sealed envelope. "He said you should read this only when you feel ready," the lawyer said. My heart pounded as I opened it. Inside was a letter in his shaky handwriting. "If you are reading this," it began, "it means you stood strong." Tears filled my eyes. He wrote about his fears, his hopes, his regrets. He wrote about how he wanted me to protect the family, not with force, but with wisdom. He wrote that he trusted me more than anyone. The letter ended with, "Build a life that makes you proud. Not a life built on fear." I wiped my eyes and thanked the lawyer. When I returned home, my mother saw the envelope and stayed silent. She didn't ask questions. She only placed a glass of water in front of me and walked away quietly. That small gesture meant more than any speech. She respected my space now. She respected my journey. As the year ended, the company reached its highest growth in history. We hosted a celebration event to thank the workers. My mother attended, standing quietly at the back. She watched me give a speech, her eyes shining with pride. After the event, some workers approached her and said, "Your son is doing well." She smiled softly, something I rarely saw growing up. That night at home, she sat beside me. "I didn't just lose your father," she said. "I almost lost you too." I stayed quiet. She continued, "I was blinded by fear of being alone. I thought money and property would protect me. But it only destroyed me." I looked at her. She wasn't lying. She wasn't faking. She was confessing. "I'm trying to be better," she whispered. "Not because I want anything from you, but because I want peace before I leave this world." Her honesty cut deep. I nodded slowly. "We can heal," I said. "But it will take time." She smiled gently. "I have time," she replied. And in that moment, I felt something shift, a new beginning. The next few months were peaceful. My mother and I found a rhythm that worked. She helped with small tasks at home. She respected my boundaries. She gave me space to grow. One evening, as we sat outside watching the sunset, she said, "Your father would be proud of how you handled everything." I looked at her and nodded. "He guided me," I said softly. "Even when he wasn't here." She placed her hand on mine. "Thank you for not letting greed destroy you," she whispered. "And thank you for not letting it destroy me." The wind blew gently, carrying the smell of food from nearby houses. Life felt peaceful. I had succeeded. Not just in protecting my father's legacy, but in rebuilding a broken home. My mother wasn't perfect. But she was trying. And sometimes, effort is more important than perfection. I knew there would still be challenges. People would still envy. Problems would still come. But I wasn't the same person I was months ago. I had grown. I had fought. I had won. And I was ready for the future. 1 year after my father's death, I stood in the sitting room holding the same brown envelope that changed everything. My mother walked in slowly. "You've done well," she said softly. I smiled. "Not out of pride, but out of peace." "We both have," I replied. She nodded and sat beside me. The house felt warm again, something I hadn't felt in years. I thought about everything that had happened. The lies, the secrets, the discoveries, the battles, the healing. My mother told me I would get nothing from my father's inheritance. She said it with confidence. With pride. With certainty. But she didn't know my father trusted me more than she ever imagined. She didn't know he saw strength in me long before I ever saw it in myself. She didn't know her own greed would open the door for truth. I looked around the home my father built and felt full. Not because of the money. Not because of the properties. But because I kept his promise alive. My mother was right. I didn't get anything from my father's inheritance. I took everything instead. And I protected it, with honor.